Hi, Rachel. Before I start, I wanted to say thank you so much for sharing. I know that we all feel a little bit more comfortable now sharing our pieces and giving feedback, but it's still new and it's still a little different. So thank you for letting me read it and letting me give you feedback. I personally really enjoyed getting a look into what it is like as a middle school teacher. Even if it's just one short lesson, it was definitely a lot different than something that would happen in my room. So I really liked that experience. I coach middle school girls, and the fact that you teach a whole class of them is amazing. So thank you for that because middle schoolers are definitely their own breed. We love them, but they are their own breed. But as I read through your author's agenda, I noticed that you wanted to look at and kind of understand more of how can you incorporate those narrative techniques, that W73B standard and the other standard of using those transitions to kind of help make the two purposes of our piece go together. That one was also tricky, so I'll kind of do my best. um, as I go through, I've highlighted some parts that I really liked and really enjoyed as a reader, and then I put some areas in blue that I just had a couple of questions I wanted to ask. Um, so right away when we get started in this piece, Mrs. Sparks, what do you mean we get to choose the topic we write about? I love that you put we in italicized letters, really showed me the emphasis on that word, that they were going to get to own their writing. I also like that it just put me right into the story. I just got right into it, and it was a really nice opening to this type of narrative, I felt. And then as I continued to read, I did have a couple of questions here in this first paragraph. So as I'm reading, you're describing your students and kind of telling me what you teach. And you say these are pre-algebra students. They achieve at a higher level than their peers. So I can tell that this is a higher class, um, based on my personal teaching knowledge, but I got a little confused when you put pre-algebra in there. I had to go back a couple times because I was a little confused because you had mentioned you were an ELA teacher. So I wonder if this would be a good place to maybe incorporate some more description of your classroom and your type of kids. Maybe even tell me if there's GT kids or um, if they were English language learners or just what type of kids they were. I wonder if that would be a good place to incorporate some of that. And as I kept reading, you're kind of going back and realizing that they hadn't gotten this experience before. And then you say, as I begin to question them about it, um, I think that's a fine transition. You know, if you don't want to do this, you don't have to, but I wonder if this would be a good place to incorporate dialogue. So up here, where it says using dialogue and you're questioning them about it, I wonder if you could use some dialogue here to kind of make it clearer to me as a reader why they're um, why they were not familiar with the idea of student choice. Um, so that's something to kind of think about. But as you go through and you kind of explain your reasoning, you state your goal here. My goal is for my students to create this writing piece to help them see that informative writing does not have to be strictly written with facts, figures, and text features, and how they can incorporate their narratives into informative writing. I thought that was a good way to introduce the article that you put in the next paragraph. I like that you stated your goal for your class. You made it clear to me as a reader what the purpose of this lesson was going to be, what you wanted the kids to gain from it. And I thought it was very to the point and understandable for me. And I feel like if I wasn't a teacher, it would still make sense to me. I do like that you put the article because it helps me understand where this idea is coming from. Um, and as you're kind of explaining what the point of that article was and what how you were going to use it. You said this resonated with me deeply because as a seventh grade teacher, I know that my students want to be heard when they speak or write. This is what inspired me to create a mini lesson on selecting a topic for our writing process. I highlighted this for a couple of reasons. This last sentence, this is what inspired me. I thought that was a great jump into the teaching part of the narrative. Um, I think it really showed why you had chosen the specific topic. Um, and then just the idea that your students want to be heard, that stuck with me because I understand when I was in middle school, when, probably when we were all back in middle school, and we just wanted to be heard, and we would have given anything for our teachers to have given us that opportunity to let our voices be heard. So I really like that you included that in there, and it shows your understanding and care for them as a teacher. And then as I go through, I put this part in blue as students discussed and shared ideas. I heard topics like bullying, social media, relationships, and puberty. And those are all such a wide variety of topics that I wonder if that would have been a good spot to incorporate more dialogue, more conversation between the students. So I could get a better idea of what they were saying and how those conversations were going. Um, because personally, I would have liked to have heard what was happening in that moment, especially when the next part you said, this made me stop in my tracks. I thought that was um, a very good place to put that, and I liked that you put that in because it shows just how little we as teachers really know about what our students are going through. Um, so I like that you put that in there because to a non-teacher reader, it makes sense. You kind of get to see that you don't really know what happens to everybody all the time. As a teacher, I related to it 100%. So I really liked that. So I just wonder if including more dialogue would make that point even stronger. And then as I kept going, you said I could see that these students have so much to say. Um, which again brings me back to that point of you're showing just how much you want these students to be able to share and how you're going to allow this to happen. I thought it was a good way to end that paragraph, kind of wrap it all up. Um, but this next part in blue that I put in her article, um, I wonder if you could reword that to be not so harsh, because you in that last paragraph with harsh isn't really the right word, but you said I could see that these students have so much to say, and then it immediately jumps into in her article. So I wondered if you could reword or rearrange that to include a more personal stance, a more personal transition to lead into um, a deeper understanding of the article. And that might help with that transition standard a little bit. And then as I kept reading, at the end of that paragraph, you said, I felt confident that my students could make the switch rather easily, but after asking more students to connect their topics to the article we read, I saw that it may be more challenging than I thought. I liked that you admitted that it was a lot more difficult than you expected because we always want our lessons to be perfect and we always want everything to go the way that we want it to go, and it doesn't most of the time. So it felt real. Um, and I like that you put that here because as you continue through, you say, like, you talk about how you're planning and you're going to do this and you're going to help make this connection stronger for your students. And that's what I highlighted down here was you begin to make those plans because it was challenging for them and it kind of showed that this wasn't just a one-time thing. It was going to be like, I'm going to make this a common practice. Um, so I really did enjoy your writing, and I really did like to hear about what seventh graders are able to do and what they're going to do. Um, so again, thank you for sharing this with me. I really appreciate it.